Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome to another episode of the Animal Crossing playthrough. I am playing through an entire year's worth of Animal Crossing in this series, and this Let's Play is basically my journey through accomplishing such a feat. This Let's Play will feature a live stream playthrough where I will be covering every single day's worth of unedited content and a much shorter abridged series of videos, the videos you're watching right now, which will only cover the basics and all the important happenings in between the repetition and grinding that some people may be less inclined to sit through. Feel free to digest this content in whatever way you see fit, whether you want to stick with these shorter videos, or if you'd rather see everything, jump on over to the stream playlist linked in the video description below. Anyway, let's continue from where we left off. Sunday, July 22nd was definitely kind of a cope day after the previous day's events, making the best of an unfortunate situation and trying to move on with it. And there were definitely a couple of things worth mentioning here. First and foremost, we do have a special visitor today in the form of Wendell the Walrus. Like Sahara, Wendell is a traveling salesman, although he deals in wallpaper instead of carpet, and he's not so much a salesman as a starving artist. This dude is hungry. Thankfully though, we have the means to cure his hunger, and no, the answer is not fruit. We need to catch our food for Wendell because he likes fish. Any kind of fish too. Get this walrus a fish and he'll give you one of his exclusive wallpapers at no extra cost. I went with the red snapper because I was convinced for the longest time that this fish was exclusively his favorite. But no, like I said, any fish will do here. Unlike Sahara though, you can't repeat this process during the day. It's just one wallpaper and that's it. Unless you have other villagers living in your town, because they can get a chance with Wendell as well. His stock, like Sahara's, is very rare and cannot be purchased or repurchased anywhere. So make sure you hold on to any of your acquisitions if you really want to have a special themed room later on. And since it was Sunday, I did try to buy turnips again. Thankfully though, for Nook's final store upgrade, we have a bit more control over when that happens, so we shouldn't have a repeat of what happened this last week. Speaking of Nook's shop, Nook & Go is gone and Nookways is finally here. Nookways does lose a few hours of opening time unfortunately, but the stock it offers is really good. Nook will now have 4 furniture items per day, a lot more tools available, and even some additional clothes as well. This stock is pretty much second to none, with the exception of the final store upgrade of course. Speaking of which, in order to get this final upgrade, in addition to reaching a certain bell cap for items sold and bought at the store, you also need a villager from another town to come and buy an item from your store. And when I say another villager, I mean a character from a different town entirely, who must visit your town from another memory card. You can of course do this yourself if you have another memory card and the space to do this of course, but this was Nintendo really wanting and expecting to make use of visiting town features, which I don't really agree with. Gaming with others is of course a good time, but locking players out of a way to get a final unlockable unless they have friends that also have the game is kind of dumb. Kind of reminds me of the dumbness of Pokemon exclusives before online play became a thing. And of course, this Animal Crossing doesn't have online play either, so yeah, you could be out of luck getting the final store upgrade unless you have the resources to do it yourself. Aside from that though, Nookways is still a decent store and selection of items, but definitely not the best, and we'll get to that best later on. Also, because Nook's was closed on the previous day, Nook finally addresses my newest house upgrade and gives me the bill. And damn, we have a lot to pay for this time. It's to be expected though, as we did get a lot of extra space for our new house, so we'll just keep doing our thing I guess. As far as museum collectibles are concerned, I intended for this day to be a fishing day, but I actually ended up with only one fish. However, this fish is kinda hard to find, so I wasn't too beaten up by it. Anyway, I found the pop-eyed goldfish, which is basically just another variation of the normal goldfish. Its only difference is really just the time of day it's available, from 9 AM to 4 PM. Every other factor from shadow size, location, and even bell amount is the same as the OG variant. For fossils, I got another piece of the T-Rex, finding the T-Rex torso, and for bugs, I actually managed to get 2 today. The first bug is actually kind of relevant to yesterday's misfortune, as if you leave some spoiled turnips on the ground, there is a chance for a line of ants to spawn, which will allow you to catch an ant for the bug log. You can also do this with Halloween candy as well, but obviously that won't be relevant for another 3 months. So spoiled turnips will have to do for now. I actually intended on getting this now anyway, regardless of yesterday's blunder, hence the reason why I bought 310 instead of 300, as I was going to use the remaining 10 for the ant fodder. But hey, if they're going to all spoil, might as well use them. I also managed to catch a pond skater on this day as well, basically a small spider-like insect that you can see skating on bodies of water from time to time. I was actually convinced for a while that this was another creature I'd have to get from another town, since their spawns are primarily reserved for holding ponds. However, they thankfully can spawn on the lake acre as well, so I was able to grab this one after all. They also only appear from 7 AM until 7 PM during the months of June through September. Anyway, I spend the rest of the day on an event I like to call Neighbor Day. A day where I basically spend that particular day's time talking to all of my neighbors, seeing if they have a job or favor I can do, and just in general building my bonds with each of my furry little friends. Through this, I can obtain more items for the catalog, potentially getting some rare items in the process, and just in general building the lore of the town of Popstar. Given, I feel like it's a bit pointless to improve and increase the friendships of your villagers in this game compared to other games, but it is something I do think helps the immersion process of playing these Animal Crossing games in general, as it allows you to grow more attached to your neighbors and really solidifies the game as a pretty good life sim. Right now in my town, I'm definitely really attached to Lily, Bill, and of course Cheri, who by this point is looking to be my Animal Crossing waifu. At least for this playthrough anyway. Don't worry, Cat, you'll always be #1 in my heart. Plus, you're not even in the series yet, so hopefully that gives me a pass here. I'm also really fond of Ricky and Penny as well, and since both Spork and Curly were OG town members, I obviously don't have much beef, or should I say pork, with them either. I'm still trying to warm up to Portia and Caesar though, but they are two of my newest members, so that will probably come with time, which only leaves Ava and Monique. Ava has definitely been turning some heads in town with her constant need to bicker with all the other animals, so obviously that is a bit of a downside for me. But she hasn't personally done anything to me yet, so I'm not 100% set on how I feel about her either. Monique, on the other hand, yeah, it's probably biased from my original Animal Crossing town, but I just do not like her at all. Even the fact that she's an OG member doesn't really help my feelings towards her either. I just really want her gone. Anyway, some highlights of this Neighbor Day was that I managed to get a dope daffodil, as it was referred to by Curly. I helped Caesar get a ball from the dump for his niece, who I'm still convinced Caesar stashed it there in the first place, and I found out that my neighbors are so lazy that they want me to get items from people who are literally in the same district they are currently in. Oh, those silly friends of mine. Anyway, that will do it for this day. Monday, July 23rd began with a bit of rain, and although that may seem like a downside to those who like to spend time in the great outdoors, I personally don't mind a bit of precipitation every now and then, especially when it comes to this day in particular, because we're going hunting for a very special kind of fish today. Before we get to that hunt though, there are a few mini highlights worth mentioning. First and foremost, we do get a new neighbor today in the form of Dozer the bear. As you might expect based on his name, Dozer is a lazy personality type, and it seems like his eyes are always closed even when he's fully awake. Basically, Brock syndrome from the Pokemon anime. And don't get me wrong, I like sleeping and napping as much as the next guy, but even I don't want to be sleeping all the time. Just enough to get my full energy back. That's just the way I like to roll. My second wave of peaches also grew, so I spent some time planting some more peach trees, and I actually ended up buying quite a bit at Nook's shop as well. However, like I said, I had a much greater objective in mind today. So, because it was raining, I decided to go after the extremely rare and very expensive coelacanth today. This is a fish that you can find in the sea whenever it's raining, as long as it's during the hours of 4 PM until 9 AM. And as for locating the fish, I'll be honest, it's not really that hard, since it's actually a very large shadow size, the biggest shadow size you can find in the sea, which means if you see something that looks bigger than normal, chances are very, very good that it's the coelacanth. Here's the biggest kicker with this fish though, it's worth a whopping 15,000 bells. So after you donate one, you can earn some bells very quickly just by walking around the rainy beach and catching a few of these coelacanths. This is the most expensive fish catch in the entire game, tied with the stringfish, which we won't be able to get until later on anyway. So, a good rule of thumb is just wait until it's raining, make sure it's the right time, and just keep walking around the beach until one spawns, scaring away any fish that's smaller in the process. You'll be rolling the dough in no time. Would you believe me that this wasn't the only monumental catch I got on this day, though? After almost 2 weeks of trying repeatedly, I finally managed to capture the bees. Big looking forward to it.
Oh yeah! Got it!
The process you just saw is generally how you want to approach these guys. Let them chase you around, turning sharply to get them off your trail, and get in position to swipe them when they come back for another pass. This will take a lot of practice though, so don't be surprised if this is not an immediate catch for you. It took me 2 in-game weeks after all, and I definitely wouldn't call this easy. The only thing I would recommend, though, is try to do this when you still have a lot of non-fruit trees in your town, because bees don't actually appear in trees that are programmed to grow fruit, and the last thing you want to do is accidentally kill their spawn chances before you even have a chance to catch them. If that does happen, you can buy more trees at Tom Nook's shop, but keep in mind that you have to plant them, wait for them to grow, and do all that stuff before they can appear again. So try to do this as early as you can. After these 2 acquisitions, I noticed that I was getting incredibly close to being caught up with my insect and fish log. I still had 3 fish I could catch during this month, with exception to the 2 fish that I'll need a different town for, and as far as insects were concerned, I was actually done until August. I was amazed at how much you could conceivably get done in just this 1 month, and it really puts into perspective how fairly reasonable it is to do an all fish or all insect speedrun of this game. Definitely not something in my future anytime soon, but I definitely recommend checking out some of those runs. They're only about an hour long, the insect one being significantly shorter, and it's interesting to see how people manage to pull these timed feats off. I had a very specific mission in mind on Tuesday, July 24th, get the remaining 3 fish I had left. But before I started working on that, new neighbor alert, say hello to Pom Pom the Duck, another peppy villager. Dang, I'm getting all the peppies in my town. Anyway, Pom Pom is really cute, and I really like the duck villagers in this game, so I'm definitely extending a warm welcome to her, and hope she has a long stay here in the town of Popstar. Anyway, before I get started here with the fish, I did get some new fossils today as well. The T-Rex skull and the Triceratops tail, which, funnily enough, actually completed both of those dinosaurs for our fossil collection. And this is actually really timely too, because I believe these 2 are the most expensive fossils as well, which means they'll make a lot of bank for us if we happen to get duplicates. Anyway, it's fishing time, and my objective for today, as stated before, is getting the 3 fish I haven't gotten yet, with the exception of the holding pond fish, of course. These fish are the brook trout, the piranha, and the koi. The brook trout is a medium-sized fish that you can find in the lake acre, and it can be found all day, all year round. In fact, I was actually surprised I hadn't located this guy yet, just because of its availability and the fact that I had regularly been trying for the last several days. But you have to remember that the lake acres do share spawns with the river, which does bring its encounter rate down. The piranha is actually a really hard fish to lock down though. It's only available from June through September in the river during the hours of 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it's a small shadow size. With all the sweet fish I had caught during the first 2 weeks, I'm really surprised I didn't run into one of these guys sooner, but it's quite rare all things considered. In fact, it's actually worth a decent amount of bells too, at 6,500 per sale, matching the giant snakehead. The final fish I needed was the koi, and although I didn't really have a time limit for this one, since it's available all year round, it is one I wanted to knock out sooner rather than later, just because it does seem to have a decent rarity associated with it. Anyway, this large shadow-sized fish can be found in the river from the hours of 4 p.m. until 9 a.m., and is actually worth 2,000 bells as well. And with that fish collected, with exception of the frog and crawfish of course, we are caught up with both fish and insects for the time being. With July almost over though, we'll likely get some new specimens available when the next month starts. But for now, let's take solace in the fact that we don't have to spend too much extra time hunting for these creatures. And with that, I just chilled for the rest of the day. I wrote Portia a letter telling her to be nicer to Bill, the duck champ, and then I went down to sleep. And it's a good thing I did, because the next day will be the start of a nearly month-long event. Wednesday, July 25th has me waking up early, 6 a.m. early in fact, because it's time for the summer morning aerobics to start. From July 25th until August 31st, Officer Copper will be hosting a small aerobics session at the town fountain every day, assuming it's not raining of course, and you can participate in the festivities as well. And what do I mean by participates? Well, you go there, you press the C-stick in a few directions, and that's really about it. You don't really gain much by doing this, quite honestly. It's kind of just a fun little side thing you can do and watch as your animal neighbors get in the action as well. You can also talk to Tortimer, who will give you a morning aerobics card, and if you manage to come to 14 of the 38 possible sessions, although with the rain it'll probably be closer to 30 possible sessions, you'll get a special gift to commemorate your dedication. Just make sure you take the card with you, though. As annoying as that is, I honestly just kept the card in my inventory at all times, just so I wouldn't make that mistake of leaving it at home. So for this playthrough, I obviously will be going after the special gift. It's a holiday and time-specific item after all. However, this was admittedly a bit of a drag to aim for, because in pretty much every instance, I was basically doing 2, sometimes 3 quick sessions for each calendar day for the next 3 game weeks. While the morning aerobics is an interesting touch and idea, there's not really a lot going on during that time period. Nook's store is still closed for a few hours, some of your animal companions are still sleeping, and if you come just before 6 a.m., the day technically won't even be reset yet, so you won't even be able to find the money rock or the gold spot either. And since the actual exercises don't really contribute to making your character any stronger or efficient, it just feels like an extra burden of time more than anything. But I'm dedicated to the Let's Play cause, so I'll put up with that burden. Sahara was also supposed to come on this day as well, which I apparently didn't check Copper the last few days, so that was a bit of a surprise for me. So once again, I had the opportunity to obtain a bit more of her stock. Gulliver also washed up on my shores today too, so I got another item from him. Aside from that though, I kind of just spent the rest of the day talking to villagers and doing some other mundane tasks. We also had another item that was buried by one of my villagers, and in the process of looking for it, I also managed to find the item that Bill buried a couple of days ago, which was actually not as hidden as I thought it was. Good to know that the items don't actually disappear if you don't find them immediately. Bill only hit a plant though, and our other anonymous donor buried an exotic table, probably the more valuable reward of the two. My troll side kinda came out a bit today as well, since Portia complained that I wasn't sending her enough letters, despite the fact that we exchanged letters very recently, and in fact I even received one from her literally on the same day of her saying this. Because of this, I decided to write her the same letter she wrote to me, back with only slight differences in word choice. One villager I would never be a troll with though is my girl Cheri. I finished a favor she asked of me, and she rewarded me with a furniture series I was collecting for at the time. I swear, sometimes the right girl for you always knows what you're looking for. Although, I will say that the queen bee herself, Monique, played a really nasty trick on me this day. After talking to her, she randomly told me that she just painted the roof of my house yellow. And when I went to my house, sure enough, she was right. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate the color yellow or anything, and I don't think my house looked necessarily that bad, but still, this was quite literally vandalism, and I wanted no part of this nonsense in my town, so I was not very happy about this. Now, thankfully you can buy some paint at Nook's shop to change the color of your roof easily, but only one color is available per day, so if you want a specific color, you may have to wait a few days for it to appear, or just reach the next payment amount for your house debt and change it then. I got my eyes on you, Monique. Strike one. And before I forget, I did get 2 additional fossils today as well. I got the skull of the plesiosaur and also the ammonite, the last remaining one-off fossil, which means we are officially done with that set. We still have a couple of dinos to build though, and I've still yet to get any pieces of the stegosaurus either. That's a shame, because that's actually one of my favorite dinosaurs. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. Let's get moving on to the next one. Thursday, July 26th. We do the morning aerobics again, and get our second stamp. I should probably also mention that you don't have to worry about doing the aerobic days in a streak either, just as long as you get 14 stamps from the start until August 31st, so you have a lot of time honestly. Anyway, in our post box today, we got two interesting pieces of mail. First and foremost, we get another new fossil in the form of the pterodactyl right wing, and we get a special mail from Tom Nook telling us that he's going to screw us over with a remodel again. Okay, I was just kidding on that one. But he did let us know that he is having a special furniture sale on July 28th at 4 p.m., so we'll have to check that out on Saturday. One thing we definitely had to check out today was another new neighbor that moved into our town, and we have another snooty villager in the form of Queenie the Ostrich. Now, you know me, I'm not a huge fan of the snooties, but something about Queenie doesn't get me feeling the same way I do about Monique. I think it's just because she's a more delicate species, or something to that degree. Either way, as usual, I'll try to treat her with respect and kindness, and not get mad at her unless she does anything mean, like paint the damn roof of my house. Yep, I'm still bitter about that. Give it time, guys. One thing that most certainly helps, though, is my girl Cheri once again coming through with another piece of the Cabana series. I swear, I'm probably just going to go for the Cabana series at this point, just because of the luck she's giving me with it. I really wanted to do the modern theme, but I just haven't been getting any luck with those furniture items. Although, I'm sure I'll change my mind several times on my theme in the course of this project. I also finally decided to change my town tune again, because it had been a bit since I last touched it. For those who didn't figure out the last town tune, it was Gourmet Race from the Kirby series. Let's see if you can get this one, guys. Name that tune. And with that, that's pretty much it for this Thursday. Friday, July 27th brought a very monumental discovery for us, and before we get to that discovery, we have to move forward with the sequence of events that got us there. First and foremost, I did the usual routine, starting with the morning aerobics, finding all the daily bell rewards, checking the shop. You pretty much know the drill at this point. However, in the process of doing this, I discovered that we once again had another new neighbor. And not only was this just a new neighbor, this was our 15th neighbor. And if you're unaware, 15 is actually the max number of animal villagers you can have in your village at any one time. If you want to get a new one of your previous villagers has to move away, which I feel is mostly random chance more than anything. Anyway, we say hello to our 15th new buddy in the form of Maple, another female bear villager. However, unlike Cheri, Maple is a normal personality like Lily and Ava. I really like Maple. I think she's very cute and sweet, and seems like she'll be a very nice fit for our town. Also, she may or may not be Canadian. With a name like Maple, can you really be so sure? Anyway, the moving in of Maple actually prompts an event that I was completely unaware had relevance to reaching your max villager cap. When you do reach that point, you can find Tortimer wandering around your town in one of the river districts. If you talk to him, he'll mention that the villagers have started complaining about there not being enough bridges in your town, and will suggest building a bridge in that particular square. Now, before you say yes, make sure that there isn't a better place for you to build your bridge first, because Tortimer just picks a district at random, and in the case of my town, I already had some very awkward connections as it is, and the place where he was suggesting was definitely not ideal. However, I was happy that this event came around, because now, I knew the possibility of getting a much-needed bridge to the right of my house to the post office was definitely in reach now, and that is easily the biggest annoyance and frustration of my town's layouts. Well, aside from the no holding pond thing, but whatever, we'll cope with that. So yeah, I refused Tortimer's request for now, but I look forward to when he appears in a much better district. The rest of this day was pretty much spent on peach tree growing. I'm getting to the point where each batch of peaches I grow will give me around 30 new ones to plant, so I definitely have my work cut out for me whenever I decide to grow more of this fruit. However, I'm still eagerly awaiting the arrival of the 3 other fruit we still need to get as well. While I was doing this work though, I was greeted with the lovely sight of a balloon holding a present flying across the screen, an event that can happen from time to time. If you follow the balloon, sometimes it'll get stuck on a tree, and if it does, you can shake it down and get a free gift. I only got a lawn chair though, so nothing amazing, but yeah, keep your eyes on the sky for these gifts. Although I think the more fruit trees you have, the less likely you'll be able to receive these gifts, because I don't think the balloons can get stuck in trees that already have fruit on them, but I'm not entirely sure. I swear, this process gets a lot better in future games, when they add the slingshot as a tool. I also noticed that Tom Nook was selling blue paint in the shop, so I finally got the opportunity to change the color of my roof back to normal. Freaking Monique. Anyway, let's head off into the next day. Saturday, July 28th. I had to stop in a town 3 times on this day in an effort to get all the necessary events I wanted to do, and at this point, I kinda wish I didn't. First, we had aerobics, nothing much to explain there, and then at 4 p.m., Tom Nook had his big furniture sale, which only consisted of 2 items and nothing else. This was a huge embarrassment of a sale, and Tom Nook should feel ashamed of himself. You can't even buy any of the usual daily amenities during this sale either, which just makes it feel like a huge waste of time. Thankfully, you can at least still sell stuff though, and even though Tom Nook does close the shop for an hour before and after the sale, he does come back with his usual stock later on in the day, so you can still do your daily routine. I was still really disappointed though, and even considered boycotting any future sales he has. Even if he does give a balloon for coming to the sale. Sorry Nook, a balloon just isn't worth it. Also, since it is Saturday, I did sell my turnips because throughout the week, there weren't any prices that seemed worth it to me. So I didn't exactly make a profit again. At least I wasn't a complete shutout like last week though. The rest of the day actually went pretty well though. I continued doing some small errands for my animal friends, and once again, Cheri came through. Not with a Cabana item again though, but with a really awesome N64 logo that I can now display in my house proudly. I am a huge advocate for the SNES and N64 consoles, as you guys probably know, so this was a huge win for not only me, but also for Cheri as well. In fact, it was at this moment that I pretty much solidified Cheri as my Popstar girlfriend, because giving me a piece of N64 memorabilia is like the equivalent of giving me an engagement ring. At least in this world, anyway. Sorry to anyone who was hoping for a Slim and Lily or even a Slim and Maple ship, but this girl has always been there for me, and I think there's been a lot of compatible energy and chemistry between us, and I think we could really go the distance together. Unless the game decides to be mean and forces her to move out at some point. I still have nightmares about that possibility, by the way. That wasn't the only highlight of this day, though, because I did see Tortimer walking around town again, and this time he was in a much better district for a bridge. In fact, he was actually in the most perfect place for a bridge, right where I wanted it. I easily said yes to this location and was finally relieved that my biggest annoyance of my town's initial layout was finally quashed. I still have to make an additional town to get a frog and crawfish, but I had plans to make an additional town anyway, so it's really not that big of a deal, I guess. I also decided to write a humorous message on the town bulletin board, still being very salty at Monique painting my house yellow. I'm not sure if this will actually get her to move though, and all this attention may just end up forcing her to stay, but on the flip side, she does make a good villain for the project, I guess. Just please stay away from my house, Monique, please. I ended the day with another performance from KK Slider, which, if it wasn't obvious, was his 3rd visit to town today. I ended up getting KK Mambo this week, so let's Mambo ourselves down to bed and officially end this day properly. Well folks, I think that's going to be it for another Animal Crossing video. Just a reminder, if you'd like to watch the full segments, raw and unedited, there is a link in the video description where you can watch the full streams of this series. Just remember that I am much further ahead of where I am now with these smaller and faster episodes, so check the video descriptions carefully on what dates are covered in each stream session, in case you don't want to be spoiled on certain happenings and events. Also, if you'd like to catch one of these sessions live and the discrepancy of time doesn't bother you, I'll post a link to my schedule so you know when I generally stream these sessions. As far as the upload schedule for these episodes in particular, I don't have a set time for them, and they'll mainly be ready whenever I get time to make them. I am a busy man after all, and this series is going to take a lot of work, so please understand and be patient with me on that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you fine people next time. Later, folks.